Hello everybody, welcome back to 3D Bootcamp by CADA. I am Chelfe, I am the teacher today, and today we will be playing around with ZBrush Core Mini. ZBrush Core Mini is a free, little bit more down-to-earth version of full ZBrush, so there's a few limitations on it, stuff like that. We'll work around them, and we'll have some fun. So last week, we did a poll on the chat discussing what animals we should mix together, because dragons by nature are chimeric, and we'll be doing a dragon bust today. We'll be doing the head and a bit of the neck. Dragons by nature are chimeric, so they're animals mismatched in together, and the chat decided upon praying mantis and owl. Yeah. That is going to be great fun. All right, so let us start off inside ZBrush Core Mini and learn a little bit about the navigation. Let me just make sure. Yes, I have my hotkeys ready. So, to navigate around inside ZBrush Core Mini, we can grab anywhere outside of our current sphere, and this will rotate around. Oh, yes. Let me just get my screen big. There we go. Here we go. So grab anywhere in the big gray area, and this will spin your sphere around. It can be a little bit difficult to see in the start, so I'm just going to make a pimple on mine. You can see, spinning it around. That's just left click. If we hold Control down and left click, we will zoom in and out smoothly. You can also do this with your scroll wheel, of course, but doing it by steps. And final one is panning back and forth, moving things. So it might look like we're moving the sphere, but we're not. We're actually moving our camera. And this is sort of a layover from ZBrush being a 2D program, which is a funny thing, which also means that ZBrush's perspective isn't actually that great. It might look fine like this, but it's really not. The depth of field is a little bit weird. So for a lot of things, we want to turn off our perspective. So go up, drag your mouse up to the upper right-hand corner where we have this little grid and persp underneath it, and just make sure that button is gray. So up here. Oh, I need to turn on my screen, or I need to set up my capture mouse cursor. Sorry, there you go. You can see my mouse cursor up here. Click this one, that will turn off perspective for you. So, we do not have a lot of hotkeys today. We of course have your standard computer hotkey of Control-Z for undoing things. This is wonderful when working in 3D because sometimes, or well, when working with sculpting, because sometimes we want to try something out but not keep it necessarily. So we will go back and Control C it, we will undo it. So we start off on our standard sculpting brush. It creates these round sausages of detail, but this is not where we start off when we sculpt. Because it's very easy to get detail, the hard challenge about sculpting is actually big main shapes. So we're going to drag our mouse all the way out to the left-hand side, and we're going to find our Move tool. This will allow you to grab geometry and just move it around. It is this one. If you go from top right, it's number 5 button. This is the Move tool. And we're just going to start shaping our sphere into a bit more of a mantis head shape. From the beginning, your area of effect is very small, so let us make our brushes bigger. Press S on your keyboard and you'll get this draw size menu up, and you can make your mouse or your brush very big. You can also find it up here at the top, but you know, time consuming moving your hand back and forth and your mouse back and forth. So it's nice to know sometimes that there's a hotkey for the size. So let me look here. Let's start shaping out a mantis. Now mantises have very nice triangular heads that actually lean very well into the dragon aesthetic. I'm just going to drag this out here, make it a little bit more nimble in here. And do take as much time as you think you need with the basic shapes, because once we start detailing, going over and start doing basic shapes afterwards means we will destroy our details. So just going to move around, going to start shaping things. This already looks sort of like a mantis head from the front. There's a bit more details here and there that we should move. There we go. I'm going to make my brush a bit smaller, and then I'm going to start shaping out a bit more of the curvature of the head. So what I'm doing is I have a smaller move brush. I'm just pulling up ever so slightly, just a little bit at a time. I'm pulling up a little bit of geometry, a little bit of mesh until I get this nice round curve up here. So this will be where my eyes are positioned. I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm gonna start dragging out, rounding this out, because I also want to sort of get the disc of an owl, because this is what 3D artists do. We get told make a mantis dragon, and then it's like, great, let me figure out what the different parts of the anatomy are called. So the whole face part of an owl is called a disc, apparently. So I'm trying to get that feeling from this angle, from the top view, and then I also just want enough space to do things with on the rest of the head. This looks good. I'm going to start working with my mouth, just moving things around. Just really take your time, get this right, because it's just so difficult doing it again later, because then we have to resculpt our details. There we go. Nice. I'm actually gonna do. Okay. So you see I have these big bulbous eye parts. That is exactly what they're going to become. And then I'm just going to still move things around. And don't worry too much about stretching, because you will start to get like geometry stretching, face stretching, but we will fix that later. So don't worry too much about it. We will get to it and we will fix it as we go along. Because there's no reason to fix it just yet. We're working on base shapes and we need to consider our base shapes before we go into detailing. And another added is those stretching parts can give us some unintentional, lovely details. So what I'm doing here at the back is I'm just pulling a little bit out because this is going to become the neck. Mostly because traditionals, you do busts with necks, and that is that's just what we're going to try and capture a little bit here. And I've been very lucky with my pulling out. Look, I have this lovely, lovely tendon here that I'm just going to work a little bit extra with, make an esophagus, and we're getting there. We're creating something weird, and I hope you guys are here with me. Let's get that owl beak in. So yeah, just tightening off the end here, or not tightening it off, tapering it off so that it becomes more beak-like. That's a little bit too thick. Owls have slimmer beaks. There we go. Sometimes we want to make adjustments that are in one direction. So right now when we move things, we have pretty much 360 degrees like customizability of it. But if we want to just move in and out on a surface, if we hold our mouse over something and then hold down the Alt key, this will allow you to only move in and out of the area you've selected. This is the alternate function. And most brushes have them and are just wonderful for it. Whoop. So, how are we feeling about this? This getting into, yeah, that actually gets us the owl that we wanted. Just moving this around. I get a bit more. Yeah. Let's touch up on this. And don't worry too much about following along what I do. You don't need to make a praying mantis owl because that's a bit of a challenge, even for me, I think. But instead, focus on making what you want to do. And ZBrush is just a lovely software that enables us to do exactly that, where we are able to create these lovely sculpts and high amounts of details that just flow naturally.
Hi.
Yes, those dips are for the owls. Here is my lovely assistant, Mito. He is here to join me for some talks about different things, both when people inevitably anger me by talking about dragons or dinosaurs, or about industry things as such.
Or any questions that people have. I do want to say one thing about ZBrush that's, I would say, really fun is that it's like the most creative thing ever, because you literally just sit and drag on clay. You can make whatever you want. So just like he said before as well, you don't have to follow along with what he does, because you can kind of like get your very own creation, I guess, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
If you want to, go rebel a bit.
Yeah, do go rebel. Go off the beaten path.
I would recommend it, at least. Like, trying to make your own things. Give it some personality.
You are, of course, allowed to follow along. This is not us telling you don't. But, you know.
But it's fun. Hi. I love Mr. Substitute. It's fun.
Yeah. All right. So I just created the inside of the beak. I just created these divots. I think we're going to have a first today and actually have jaws that are open on this thing.
We're making both. Or he's making both.
I'm making both.
Like
so we're combining owl and praying mantis. I feel like this is a good place to be for my base shape. There's praying mantis in the overall head shape. We'll get a bit more in with it with the scales and stuff like that. But I want to bring a bit more bug back to this. By simply creating a two-parted mouth so that the lower jaws are split into two. I'm just going to drag out a bunch of geometry here.
Oh, we've done this session or bootcamp in the past as well with ZBrush and teaching people, and each time it usually changes, like depending on what animal we're doing or combination of animals, I guess.
Yeah.
And it usually always is like a dragon or something together with like a sea creature.
Yeah, it was a chicken seahorse last.
Oh yeah, that's true.
last time, which was great fun.
Yeah.
We've done deer and axolotl, which still is one of my favorite ones to have done in the past. Porcupine and crocodile, which I actually took home and sculpted on. And and almost finished. I'm just missing it, giving it wings.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I don't think you were there for that. I think you were sick.
Oh no, so, I missed one.
Yeah, yeah, and that sort of falls into the whole dragon mythos thing. Dragons are inherently chimeric. They're inherently created out of multiple different animals, and therefore, when you're creating dragons, you should use that as a basic design principle.
But I also feel like every time we have done these, we usually talk about the actual animals that we're doing. And today, for the first time, we're doing a bug or an insect.
Yeah, we're doing a mantis.
Yeah, that's fun. Also, for ZBrush in general, since it's very, compared to last time with Blender is very hotkey based.
Yeah.
So, but that's not the case today. Like, what you're sitting with at this point is pretty much all you're going to be, mostly what you're going to be using when it comes to hotkeys, at least.
Yeah. It's the navigation things, and it's the it's the navigation, and then it's just the Alt button that gives you the alternate function of tools, and every tool has an alternate function. Most of them will remove instead of add, but we'll get into that.
But that also means you can be even more creative today compared to the barrel last time.
Yeah.
And you can go ham with that. Is the mic okay? Is it picking up fine?
I think it is.
Hopefully. I got a thumbs up from the IT guy. Oh, IT guy. Yeah, IT guy, right? Is that the nickname?
Yeah. Christian, you are a moderator. He's lovely. All right. So I'm getting a place where I want to start to define a bit more. I'm leaving the eyes a little less because, like I said, we have some limitations and we're going to have to work around them instead of working with them. So I'm going to leave the eyes for a long time, but then I'm going to get back to them later. So next thing I want to do is, because you can see here my mandibles, they have become very stretched. They've become very, very jagged and not very pretty to look at. So we have all these tools out here. I will introduce them to all of you, but we actually have one that we're not told we have, which is the smooth function. If we hold down Shift on our keyboard and then drag our mouse over things, this will smooth it out and add more geometry to these parts. If your brush is too big, this will eat through your geometry like pigs through butter. So do be careful if you have chosen to do mandibles like I have, because it will just tear on through it. But look at this stretching in here. Look at this. It's giving us some nice tendons, some nice tension pulling between the mouth and the jaws that I like. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is going places. Okay. So, how is everybody doing at home? Where are you from? I'm guessing we have a lot of repeat viewers, but still, come on, holler out. Where are you from? Yeah. So, oh, I saw a good question earlier. Jasmine asks, can you sculpt whatever you want in ZBrush, or is it just pushing and pulling clay and then fix topology on top of it afterwards, and either rig it or 3D print it or animate it? So you can sculpt whatever you want. It is very much like right now we're just starting with basic shapes, so we're pushing and pulling things because the basic shapes are the most important thing. For most designs, creature or character, the most recognizable thing will be a silhouette. So getting the basic shapes of things down, getting the basic silhouettes down will make the creature more recognizable. If we spend a lot of time working on those, making those a lot more defined and a lot easier to read or a lot more interesting to read than if we just start sculpting on a sphere. Because starting to sculpt on a sphere, our basic silhouette will stay sort of spherish. The same thing if we start sculpting on a cube, it'll stay cubish. And that's great if you're doing something for that. If not, yeah, you're a little bit out of luck. So it's about moving, pushing, or pulling, pushing, and just moving things around generally so that we get more pleasant shapes that we can work with. Oh, I like this. Oh, we'll get back to that. All right. So let us start giving it a little bit of detail. If you guys are still working on basic shapes, don't worry. That's a-okay. Like I said, you need to take your time with the basic shapes. That's the most important part. The details can always come later. Well, I feel like I am sort of getting there. I'm just pulling out a little bit. Let me pull out. Ooh, let's look at this. That's a nice shape. Look, there's a little indent there. It's a little. That's interesting. That's nice. Let's define that a little bit more by just pulling it out. This is one of those things that I love with ZBrush. It is happy accidents. You're making it too dense for the free version, but using the software as a beginner sculptor, can you talk about ZBrush compared to Nomad Sculpt on the iPad? So I'm actually testing out Nomad Sculpt on a Samsung tablet right now. Other tablets are available. To check the difference between them. While Nomad Sculpt offers a great variety of tools and ability to create things, it is missing some of the more advanced things that full-on ZBrush has. So if you're working with sculpting, you will have full ZBrush because that's giving you a bunch of things that will both speed up your workflow and allow you to do a bunch of more complex actions. As a beginner, ZBrush Core Mini is a very fine place to begin because it's not bombarding you with tools and functions to distract you. It's just giving you the basic tools you use. So the iPad version of both Nomad, Forger, there's also one called 3D Modeling for Sculpt, I think. I have it on my phone, of all things. Are all right, but they're just missing some things. If you're only doing 3D prints, sure, go for it. I don't mind. I don't have skin in the game. It's not like ZBrush are paying me. They're just the best software that's out there. Somebody is saying, so Stefan is having problems with he keeps hitting the free version too dense material or too dense object, and we'll get to that one later. For now, stick to your move brush. Get those basic shapes down because look here. If I press Shift F, you don't really need to know this, but you can see the geometry, you can see the faces that build up your mesh, but it's all fairly low poly. As long as you're only using the move brush, it will stay that way. If you start using any other brush, if you start smoothing out, we start getting this mess of topology, and this will create very, very dense topology by default and very, very quickly. So that's why I'm saying getting your basic shapes down is not only important for design and readability, it's also important for your workflow if you're working in free softwares. Blender does have Sculpt. hopey, but if you have access to a dedicated sculpting software, it will always be better. Specialist tools will always be better than generalist tools at their function. So, for example, Blender has simulation properties. You can simulate wind, you can simulate water, you can simulate fire, you can simulate cloth. But if you have access to the program called Houdini that is dedicated to simulate, it will be faster, better, and more complex, give you more parameters to play around with, which will just make your life a lot lovelier and easier. But that's only if you have access to it. If you don't, like, the programs aren't end all, the skills are translatable. Sculpting in one software will allow you to sculpt in a different software because we're just using the move brush right now. Later we'll use the sculpt brush, but sculpt brushes are sculpt brushes. It's not like one tool is better than the other. Programs are just optimized differently and better. All right. So a little bit too square on my jaw here. Just, all right, I think I'm getting there. So, do you have anything?
Hi. You didn't answer this, right? Because that's really interesting.
What's that?
Yeah. So, is it a bad idea to have too much detail slash smoothing, too much when you are sculpting? I imagine it being heavier for any game. So, that's a thing I thought at the beginning as well, before actually making games. So, sculpting is not used for the games in that sense. So basically, the way you use sculpting for actual productions and stuff is that you make a really high detailed model that, like, you can have as much detail and stuff on it as you want, and then afterwards you take that model and you go and change it completely by basically putting a really small or a lot less topology on top of it to kind of like copy its silhouette in a sense, and then you're applying what you made in the sculpting on top of that as like a what would you call
It's a retop.
That?
It's a cage. It's a shell
Yeah.
for your details. Ooh,
and
lovely.
That's called retopology.
Yes, so that's called a retop.
But you would never use an, like, for example, him taking this model, he would never take that model and then put it into a game as an example, because it would be too heavy.
So up here, where I'm circling my mouse right now, it's telling us active polygons. This is higher than Geralt from The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Like right now, this little piece of head is 65,000 polygons. That's higher than Geralt from Witcher 3 because he was, if you're talking squares alone, he was 23,000. If you're talking triangles, he was 46,000.
It might even be more than our whole game.
Yeah.
Like, so for my thesis, I'm making a game.
Yes.
I talked a bit about it last time, and that game is, well, it's very like low poly focus, so not a lot of polygons. As little triangles / squares as possible. And that means, it's optimized, or it's a lot easier to optimize because it doesn't have as much to.
Oh, it's easier for the engine to pull, definitely.
Yeah. But this sculpt that he has right here is probably more than our whole game.
Yeah. So actually, there's a funny thing I learned recently. So there was a new Resident Evil game out 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Village, Resident Evil Village. So the big muscle mommy in that one.
Right.
Yes, Lady Dimitrescu. Her backside, her bottom, has a higher poly count than the original Resident Evil game. Just her bottom.
Does it?
Has a higher poly count than the original Resident Evil game.
It's dense. Can confirm.
People are thirsty, yo.
Right. No, it's a good point. Probably simmed very well as well. I haven't played the game, so I wouldn't know. But
no, it was just a fun thing that I loved. The fact of that. Oh God, times have changed since the 90s.
That is true.
So all right,
Look at technology advancing.
Yeah.
Huh? That's crazy.
Yeah. And there are actually, so Mito's almost right. There are certain instances in modern day computer game engines, things like Unreal Engine, that allow you to take things in as sculpts. There is the Unreal Engine 5 has a system called Nanite, and Nanite actually allows you to take things in as sculpts, but whatever you take in that way cannot deform, so they cannot be animated. They have to be still. They have to not ever move, and then you can actually take a sculpt in. So that means rocks, buildings, things like that. But not actual characters, not creatures. Unless you have a rock just sliding across the earth, it's not really gonna work that well. So I need to draw or cut. No. So Hopi is asking if there is a way to draw or cut. We will get into the, like if you're talking about segmentation on it, yes, we will get into that later. But let us start off with our basic sculpting brushes. The two top brushes we have here are called the Standard and Clay Buildup. These two do more or less the same thing, but they have a little bit of slight variation to them. So the Standard brush is the one I showed off earlier. It gives you these round sausages to sculpt with. It also incidentally subdivides your things. It gives you these round sausages of sculpt. And the other one we have is Clay Buildup. Clay Buildup is harder. It doesn't smooth out its sides. It's just a square buildup of geometry. There's a little bit of a religious war. Not that anybody's actually fighting. They're just going, I think this one's best. I think this one's best. And I am on Team Clay Buildup over Team Standard Brush. So it's one of those things where it's a preference. If you like one over the other, there's no shame in it. Just use what you like, and I'll do the same thing. Don't come in and shame me. So, yeah. There we go. And I really like the clay buildup mostly because it gives us these hard lines that can sort of be used to define things. It's good for muscle fibers. It's good for creating hard edge transitions between things. And it just overall, I really like the fact that it feels harder. It feels more sketchy because it also means I can be a little bit more liberal with it. I can go, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm not too worried about the look of it in the beginning, because I know I'm going to go in and refine it later. So there's no reason for me to be precious just yet. Right now, we're just designing, we're going with the flow, we're figuring out what looks good, what doesn't look good, stuff like that. And to do that, we need to either trick our brains to allow us to do it, or be conscious that anything we do can always be changed at a moment's notice. Either because you don't like the design anymore, or if you work with a customer, the customer decides that that design doesn't work and you need to change things. C. Jan is asking me if I'm using mouse or tablet. I am using a tablet. I have my own one because I design miniatures. I have my own commercial license of ZBrush, so I design miniatures in my free time because I think it's fun. And so I have invested in a Wacom tablet. But since the Huon software update happened back in 2020, the Huon XP Pen, all of the different tablets with screens, or without screens for that matter, are good and work as they should with 3D softwares. So you don't necessarily need to get the most expensive one. You can just get whichever one you want and have it work for you. You can also use a mouse. Our resident ZBrush teacher which isn't me, can you believe it, is Birk Møller. And he spent the first 5 years of his 3D career sculpting with a mouse because he did not believe that a tablet would do any good for him. So he learned how to sculpt with a mouse, and you can definitely do it, and that is great fun. You can still do it sometimes. It's weird to look at as somebody who uses a tablet, but it works. He's proven that it works. He switched to a tablet since, but I still think that you can do things with a mouse. I did my original sculpt of this with a mouse, or not my original, my practice sculpt, which didn't look a lot like this. So, yeah. So as you can see here, I just used my clay buildup here to create a bunch of wonky, like insectoid shapes, because insectoid chitin has all these bumps and stuff like that in them. And I've also created a bit more of a hard line on my eyebrow. I'm going to get back to them and do a little bit more smoothing out, and I'm going to define them even more. Might even segment them up a little bit, but at this point, I'm still at an early stage where I'm just playing around, I'm detailing things. So there's no reason for me to start going super detailed just yet. And I wouldn't recommend anybody else doing that because it's just a never-ending thing. And if your primary shapes aren't good, and if your secondary shapes, that's your muscle tones, that's your bony landmarks, that's if you have like a jaw, it will be where your jawbone ends. This is a bony landmark. Or if you have a shoulder, you have the place where your patella and your shoulder blade and your clavicle meet. That is also a bony landmark. You have here, you can feel your bone on most people. And those become a lot more important because we're going to be adding detail on top of them. So we don't want to make them after we've made details because then we're going to ruin our details. All right. So a lot of ZBrush is just, well, what's the workflow? It's primary shapes, spend as much time as you need on those. And then it's secondary shapes, getting extra little bumps and bruises, getting the extra shapes ready to just have it set. All right. So this might happen to some of you. I have locked my viewport, and it is a feature out here, rotate on y-axis, but it is very annoying that it just does it when you're navigating around. So one way of fixing this is holding down Shift and seeing if you can get it back to normal. If that doesn't work, grab your little head up here, and clicking on that will reset the way you navigate and orbit around in 3D space. Yes. All right, so at this point, you're probably realizing that this active polygon count that I was talking about earlier, it's getting high. And in ZBrush Core Mini, we have a limit of 750,000. It's enough. You don't really need more than that for what we're going to do today, and for most other things, it's probably a very good count. But it becomes very dense, and ZBrush Core Mini is going to start telling us, you have too many polygons, we need to reduce it. Instead of Control-Cing or undoing all our work, above our active poly count, we have these 3 buttons. What they will do is they will reduce our mesh by analyzing it and deciding, well, here's very detailed, and then this isn't very detailed, and this isn't very detailed. We can remove a bunch of geometry from the non-detailed areas to put into the detailed areas. So mine is on 461,000. I'm going to click low, and it is going to remesh it down to 150. And look at that. There's no change. There's a change to the topology, the way that looks, but there's not actually a change to my mesh because it's analyzed where I have details and where I don't, and uses that information to keep my details, keep my information without losing out. So just making it a good habit to go up here, clicking low, clicking mid, even do high, to get things down to a usable level. All right. Let's start smoothing this out a little bit. I want to smooth this part out. And it's just me holding down Shift and then smoothing out parts so that they blend either more naturally or they lose a bit of their definition because their definition's a bit too powerful. And of course I can go in and I can sculpt these back on if I want. I think this will look nice. And let's taper it a little bit like so. Doot, 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 doot. And then let's do like a split plate here. So because I have symmetry on, I can do this very nice split of chitin, of the buildup of what insect chitin is made of. We can do the same thing here. Just have it come down, smaller size. Still want that hard edge between them. And then let's take it around this so we get a nice patterning on it. So now I'm getting into detailing. This actually is starting to become details on it instead. But I finished all my secondary shapes. I finished all my primary, I finished all my secondary shapes, and now I'm starting to detail, because even though I love detailing and it's the best thing in the world, it does allow me to, it's important to have all the other shapes down before I start detailing, or my details will get ruined when I need to go fix my secondary and primary shapes. All right. Hey.
Hi.
Yeah, sorry, just going through chat a little bit here.
Yeah, that was an interesting question earlier as well. I've been looking at making video games and not by coding them, and found something called visual scripting plugins. Do you guys have any experience in making I assume video games, with other tools than coding them?
Yeah, so I am the resident specialist in Unreal.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, so that means I use Node. I do node-based programming, which is visual scripting. So you have chunks of code that you pipe in and you use to get different effects out of. It's great fun. It's very, very intuitive for somebody who's visually minded. It's one of the reasons why I use Unreal and not Unity, because Unity you have to program it. I understand that they have gotten visual scripting capabilities in there, but I'm so far gone in Unreal that I'm just going to stay with it.
Yep. Also, I just feel like in general, Unreal, so at our school, we do a lot, like we have a lot of game projects in general where we do get to make games where we use Unreal Engine. And there, since we don't learn coding at the school, since we're a 3D generalist education, thankfully Unreal has pretty much everything that you kind of need to make like at least a simple game built into it.
Yes, you have a bunch of presets that will help you get started.
So in case you are interested in making games, you can by using Unreal, because Unreal is very creative, friendly, and intuitive for people if you don't really know coding as well. So the game that we're working on for my thesis right now, we aren't doing any coding, but we're still making a game from scratch, which is, and we're using Unreal Engine 5 for that, which is very nice because none of us know how to code. So we're just doing a lot of the graphics, like level design, game design. We can do game design since you don't need coding for that, right? And then we're doing like animations and such. And we can still get to a finished product and actually have a game at the end just by using Unreal Engine 5. So it's like, that's a very nice use or tool to use if you do want to make things such as games or movies even.
Yeah, because
and we learned that at our school as well. We get to do a lot of projects where we work together on a lot of different things with everyone in your class, where people like go on different or have different tasks and such and different roles, and then you kind of combine all that to make games and movies and such, which is very fun. And Unreal makes it also very fun. So
Yes.
yeah.
There is also teaching in Unity. Oh, yes, question.
Game projects a year or a semester?
So our first semester is individual because everybody needs to get there. Oh, so we're being asked how many game projects a semester, and it differs from semester to semester because we have some semesters that are focused on other things. So our first semester is focused on getting everybody into a basic comfortability within 3D, making sure that everybody knows how to model, how to texture, how to unwrap, how to do everything that needs to be done as when we're working with visuals in general, and animation and technical things, stuff like that. On our second semester, we go into groups. I split people up into groups, and they have to make their first game within that group. Third semester is master classes. We build upon previous knowledge so that you're no longer just an intermediate. You're no longer just given the knowledge you must have to begin 3D. You're now being given the knowledge you need to have to be to have more mastery, more knowledge of more complex workflows, specialized softwares, how to work together instead of just working on individual things, because most projects are not solo. Like for every solo released and developed game, there's a few thousand that never even saw the day of light. Like, damn, I think I have 4 games on my hard drive that haven't been open in a year. So that happens a lot, and a lot more than one would think. It also happens in the industry. Our wonderful education manager, Adam Mays, who is he still is, but was a game designer for many, many years and worked for what are the guys who did Kane and Lynch? That whole studio. All right. Well, he worked on a bunch of games, and I think he was telling me the other day that he has.
IO.
Oh, yeah, he worked on a subsidiary of IO, and he was telling me that he has had 63 games released, but he's worked on 570. So, and that's a fairly high average in the industry, apparently. So most games never get released. They never even reach the stage where they get marketed before somebody decides either we're not going to work on it anymore, or it's not profitable, so the company or producers and things like that will pull out. But as a 3D artist, you still get paid, and you still get fun things to work on. I have one of my first jobs. I'm technically still under NDA, so I can't talk about what I did there. But I worked on a game, but that's many years ago, and because the game never released, I'm still under NDA. I can't talk about what I did for them. I can say I did work there, and I did a bunch of things for them. Can't say what.
But also to answer your question with how many like games specifically that we do, that was the question,
yeah.
right?
I went out on a tangent. I'm sorry.
In my case, who is a third year, 6th semester at this point, I have done 3 games throughout my education, I think. I did one in 2nd semester, I did for 5th semester, and, well, technically I did 5 games then, but
Yeah.
yeah. So we also we were on Dadu, which is, if anyone hasn't, or if people haven't heard about it, it's this like collaboration between a lot of different universities around Denmark that are focused on different things, where you come together and make games in big teams. And we made 3 games on Dadu. So that, including the one I did in 2nd semester, including the one I'm doing right now, I have done 5 games.
Yes.
And I want to work in games, so
yeah.
I prefer that. So yeah. Also, did you have something else? Because otherwise I was going to answer a question.
Oh, no, answer the question. That's fine.
Okay. So there was a question about animation.
Oh, yeah, no, you take that.
Yeah. Okay. Do you plan on doing any summer courses in animation? So the way that we're also doing this 3D bootcamp thing is that we're doing 4 throughout a month. First time being modeling, which we did last week, where we made a barrel.
Mm-hmm.
This week, or second lesson, I guess, we're doing sculpting, where we come up with a combination of animals. Third one is texturing.
Yes, third one is
Right.
texturing. There will be a poll out on the Instagram coming in the coming week deciding which weapon we will be texturing.
Yes. And then the last week, we're doing animation. So if you are interested in wanting to do animation, 4th week, I don't remember what date it is right now, sitting like as of right now, but in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from now, we would be doing animation. So if you are interested in animation, we will be doing that in 2 weeks. Also, again in May.
Yes.
So yes. So yes.
God damn it,
That's
Christian. Yeah.
That's that.
All right. So Jasmine is actually asking a very interesting thing. This may split the waters, but do you have to go to, for example, your school to learn 3D and animation skills to get a job in the field that makes video games or concept arts or 3D model for games? So you're absolutely, this doesn't split, like for people who are professionals, this doesn't split the waters. The big deciding fact on it is how much you know. The problem with being self-taught is a lot of the times you'll hit onto something that doesn't interest you and you won't learn it. But that might be a vital part of a pipeline. So if you're not learning it, it means there's an entire part that you don't know anything about that might tie into what you do like. And that's why, and if you don't know it, you don't know how to prepare for it, or you don't know how to receive it. That means that for a lot of companies, they have to teach you while you're there, and while there is a introduction grace period for most companies to get in, that is normally to learn pipeline, to learn naming conventions, to learn proprietary tools, stuff like that, and not learning 3D skills, because you're supposed to have those before you go out into the industry. It means that while there were a lot of self-taught people in the industry 10, 15, 16 years ago, a bit before my time, there are less of them now because you got less in your investment. You are paying people a salary for inherently going to school at a studio. So you can do it, but it is harder and it takes a longer time, and you don't know what you don't know. And by that, let me just use my model as an example here. So this is what you know, and you've likely all seen this thing before. This is what you know you don't know. So all these are terms and things you've heard before. You might have heard retopology, you might have heard unwrapping, you might have heard rigging, all these things you've heard before. But there's a bigger circle around it that is called the unknown unknowns. Let's do like this instead. And if you don't know these exist, you don't know how to get the knowledge. You don't know how to teach you, or to teach yourself the necessary skills to get them. But that means there's going to be gaps in your knowledge. Because one of the things in here is, if you know something exists, it's very easy to learn it. Having the knowledge is almost, or knowing where to get the knowledge is almost as important as having it at the beginning. So one of the things we aim to do as a school is, of course, making your knowns bigger, but then making this circle, no, sorry, not that circle, making this circle bigger and making your unknown unknowns as small as possible. Because if we do that, you will go into any project and understand that this is something I don't know how to do right now. Give me a week, I will know how to do it, because you know it exists. So being self-taught just comes with a lot of dangers and a lot of pitfalls. It doesn't mean you can't do it, it just means it's harder. that. All right, so basic sculpt brushes down. Let's go into some of the other ones. So for a quick one, we're going to touch the inflate brush. This is a little bit self-explanatory, but let's go over it anyway. This will inflate whatever you're currently painting on. So I'm going to use it to bring back a little bit of praying mantis to my shape here. That's in the wrong direction, so let's just go backwards. So yeah, the inflate just brushes things up a little bit, inflates them so that they become more round. Think of it as everything inside your mouse cursor is a balloon and you're blowing air into it, so it's blowing up. And then next to it, up here, we have the pinch brush. Now pinch takes everything within its radius and just pulls it together. And this gives us these nice tighter lines. It does also have a tendency to wash out a few details, but that's what it is. We can always bring them back in later. So yeah. Oh, I just remembered. So Jasmine, if you're still unsure about going to a school or unsure about if 3D is the thing you want to do, we do have this small course called 3DE, 3D Essentials, where you will be taking pre-recorded video tutorials, but I am available every Wednesday to help if you need it. It's an optional thing. It's not forced to come every Wednesday, but it is a option to come. I got stuck on this. I wanted to try this. Can you please help me? And I will be there to help you. There is also every second Friday, there is a bit of feedback where you can come with anything you've made and get feedback on it by both me and I think a few times I've convinced my other teachers to join me in on it to give extra feedback. So that's one of those things I hope to do more in the future. Just getting extra views on it from people who've been in the industry for a long time and, you know, might have a more interesting point of view than you yourself do, because we have a tendency to look ourselves blind at projects, and then having somebody to guide us on is good and nice. All right. Yeah, there is also, if you just want to hang out, talk to students, and learn how they are, I am also lurking in there. There is the CADA Discord. Yes, Jasmine, the 3D Essentials is online only. So it is only available online. Yes.
And also, since we have our Discord, if you are a part of the 3D Essentials course, you also get a special role where you get that access where you can talk to teachers and stuff and ask any questions, private session with specifically you, right, Chalva?
Yes, with specifically me.
Where you can go and ask a lot of those questions that you need and just in general have a place to talk, share your work, and all that good stuff. And also talk to our students. So the Discord is on our website in case you are interested in joining it. There are some channels where some of our students have also. I like that I'm saying some of our students as if I'm not a student myself, but I am. But where they have also shared some of their work that they've done in the past and stuff that you can go look at.
Yeah, both school and personal projects, as far as I remember, right?
It's pretty fun.
So, just carving things out. As you can see here, the pinch brush is also very good at defining features for us. Yes, what's up?
So we got a question that if there is like other courses specifically where you can.
Yes, and also like if you could join some kind of workshop related to what you learned.
Right. So yeah, we're being asked also for the stream. We're being asked if there are some workshops for what we've learned and stuff, or that we've been taught here, where you would come together and work. We don't, as of right now. That honestly could be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
If people were to be interested in coming together and with all the things that they've learned, try to do some things. I think that would be fun.
There are a bunch of things where we encourage our students to go to, such as Game Jam, for example, because that's just a wonderful learning experience for most people. But it's one of those things where Game Jam is 100%, what's it called? Like, the people who join Game Jam are volunteers, and it's over a weekend, and both legally and morally, we cannot force our students to go to school on a weekend. It would be amazing if we could, but
Yeah.
oh, no.
No, but small events like that could be very fun to do.
Yeah. Yeah, so apart from that, it's pretty much just 3D Essentials and Bootcamp right now.
Yep. Also, I'm standing behind the camera. That's why, yeah. For the ghost boys in the background.
Yep. Leonie is asking if it's possible to sculpt a full creature, or does it only make sense to do a bust? You can sculpt a full creature. The reason why I'm doing a bust is because there's limited times. We only have 2 hours, one of which is already gone, and we're 4 or 5 brushes in. And I want to get past detailing, and I want to get past a bunch of other subjects. So for me, it only makes sense to do a bust. If I did a full creature, we would probably only get around basic shapes, because when I sculpt things, if I sculpt a miniature, for example, I spend a good 4 hours, 5 hours on just the basic shapes, getting basic shapes, basic silhouettes down. And that's just the way it is, because that's then a product that I need to bring on further, and those basic shapes need to be down. But if I'm doing a speed sculpt, if I'm doing something in 2 hours, I'm going to limit myself to something that will look good in those 2 hours, more than something that shows a complete workflow. That's good. All right. So, starting to get some of the tertiary shapes, the third level of detail, third level of shapes up in here, where we're just creating the divots. Technically, these up here were as well. These scales were tertiary shapes. They are even, maybe even like the fourth level down, getting in detailing, but I think at that point you just call it detailing. I do at very least. I don't find any more reason to divide it up more than necessary. Just start to define those. And yeah, so that looks terrible. That looks better. All right, so I'm going to move on to my next brush, because we're doing a dragon, and you cannot have a dragon without having horns. So I'm going to go down to the brush next to our move tool called Snake Hook. Now, Snake Hook is another one of the brushes that divide the seas, because what it does is pretty much the same as our move tool, but it pulls out geometry while creating new geometry. So it allows us to create horns or tentacles or tendrils or beards or antennae, anything we could really imagine, very, very quickly. They do tend to be a little bit 2D. If like you look at it here, they're very flat, they're in one direction, so they do need a little bit of editing afterwards. Let me just pull this in here for you. As you can see here, I have a few mantises that I'm going off of. I like this shape, and I'd like to incorporate that as horns. So I'm going to have a fairly big, yeah, about 3/5 up the scale sized snake hook brush. I'm going to pull it out. I'm just going to do this slowly, because I want to get the shape right. I want to get them out, I want to get them more like bending outwards, and then they're going to come in and meet at the middle later. So just using the snake hook as a move tool, because some people do that. I understand why, but and then let's make it bigger. Boop, boop, boop. Up here. Just there we go. And then let's get a little bit of curvature on them so that they seem more natural. Very few things in nature are actually straight. Yeah. Stinest, you have shift button for smooth. So we have a question, somebody having a weird line of pixels going through my creature's jaw. And if there's an eraser brush. The closest thing we have to an eraser is our smooth brush. So that is what I would say, do that. If you need to erase things, if you need to smooth things out. Yeah. Just gonna smooth this. There we go. That actually looks fairly nice. I'm gonna go into my inflate. I'm gonna create a little bit more roundness here. And because we have that insectoid look on it, I don't mind too much having like a bulb where it starts as if it had a ball joint here. Or maybe I do. No, I don't. I really don't. So yeah, just going through, just sculpting a little bit, adding a little bit of interest here and there. That's actually fairly nice. And I'm just using the brushes we've already gone through. There's nothing new here. And don't worry too much about like your dragon not looking like mine. For most of you, it's your first time looking inside ZBrush Core Mini, and I quite literally make money off of working with this program. So I sit in it, well, not every day, if nothing else, at least 10 to 15 hours a week. I sit in it, so I am pretty confident that I am better than you. So, let's see here. All right. So, like I said earlier, you guys were asking for a way to like draw lines, draw segmentation and stuff like that. If we go to underneath our move tool, we have our /3 brush. Boop. And this one will create indents for us. It will create these beautiful, beautiful sharp lines. Of course, depending on what size your brush is, will make nice segmentation for things. Don't like that one, let's get it away. And allow us to draw these chitinous panels that are so prevalent in insects and other arthropods. Yes. Oh, just moving up here. All right. How does the dragon owl eat? So, I imagine it eats sort of like a bobbit worm does, where the lower jaws will likely grab onto something and force it down the throat. Because you have a lot of animals actually in nature that don't have muscles to swallow. So what they do instead is they force things so far down their throat that there's nothing else to do for that thing than go down it. Moray eels are like that. They have a secondary mouth inside their mouth. They're what actually inspired the alien from Ridley's Alien series. With the secondary mouth as a tongue. That's moray eels right there. They're terrifying if you see the skeleton of them. Oh, yeah, just creating a little bit more details, some lines up and here and there.
Good question. Interesting topic as well.
There's jobs for everything. I've seen some work with 3D printing companies. There's also, oh, not that one.
No, this one. That's us.
Okay, is there companies or is there job opportunities with just sculpting? Yes, there is. So there's a dude called Nacho Paredes. Yes, and he designs jewelry with ZBrush. So he uses ZBrush for something that's not even related to media to just design jewelry. And that is, watching him work is just amazing because he works with completely different rules than what we do as CG artists. And has a very interesting, fresh workflow compared to what everybody else does. So there are jobs outside of it. There's also jobs for concept sculptors. So instead of being a concept artist that will draw a dragon on 2D paper or in Photoshop, there are people who will sculpt a dragon for you as a concept. And big companies like that because it means a lot of the time you can get that dragon in and just start working from it right away. Not starting animating and stuff like that, but you can start doing the retopology of it very, very quickly.
Okay, but, right, so me being the person who hasn't been in the industry yet.
Yes.
To me, it seems like there's also a lot of competition when it comes to sculptors only.
There's a lot of competition to sculptors only.
Right.
It is...
Because it's such a fun tool that everyone kind of wants to do it. So if you're competing against like a million other people who also love to do sculpts, it's like, oh, that becomes a lot randomly, right?
It does become a lot. It's they're sort of the SoundCloud rappers of the industry. Nobody really takes them serious, but they're very successful. Because sculpting, while everybody loves sculpting, they also realize that there's a lot of people about it, and it's more difficult to get into than if you were a modeler or a texture artist or a simmer or an animator.
Yeah.
So they'll sort of go, no, let's not do that.
So that means, I guess it's kind of, as a sculptor, the cool, or I think that would be good if you do want to focus on sculpting, is that you also know all the other things. So
Yeah.
retopology is like, I guess you kind of really need that also as a sculptor.
If you ever want to use your sculpt, then yeah.
Because that's like very important. Because usually you don't just use a sculpt.
You do for 3D printing, but that's about it.
That's true. But, and I guess that's, because I really like sculpting. I didn't at first, but I find sculpting very fun. But I don't want to live off of it. Personally, I mostly just want to use it as a hobby because it's like, I don't know, it's just fun and a chill thing. It's not as stressful as all the other things. Yeah. But also knowing everything else in the pipeline other than just sculpting, then sculpting randomly becomes a really good tool to use for everything else. Which I guess we're learning here, which is very nice.
Yeah.
Because I personally, I don't want to focus on sculpting. I want to focus on animation, but even then, it's like sculpting is still a very fun and nice tool to have in my arsenal, because
it also allows you to do interesting things with your animation, because you can sculpt blend shapes to correct things.
That is true.
So that is also an option.
Yeah. But I do feel like it can be quite important also to know other things. If
you it's sort of going back to my self-taught thing. You do need to learn more things than just the things that interest you.
Yeah.
Because if you only ever work towards that, you're useless in a pipeline.
Yep.
If you model, you have to model for a rigger to be able to take your model and have it work smoothly. If you rig, you need to give your rig to an animator. That animator needs to be able to actually work with it. It's not just your preferences, because you're not the one animating. It's the animator's preferences.
For the love of God, don't give me a 2 million poly model.
Oh yeah, no computer is going to survive that.
The problem with animation and like sculpts is that it would be amazing if we could just sculpt the highest detail thing ever, just rig it and then start animating on it. But if you were to do that, technically you could. But I think for every time you try to move something on your model, like let's say I just want to move an arm. Let's say the model has like 1 million polys, right? And we try to move an arm. That's gonna take
a solid like
a minute maybe for the PC to even be able to acknowledge that you moved something. And if you have to sit and wait a minute every time you move something as an animator, that randomly makes your job very hard.
And very slow.
Yeah.
I do remember animations are already a fairly, a surprisingly slow process.
Yeah. And even and with that, then.
Yeah, and then added on that the software, hardware just cannot keep up with things like sculpts. Just means you're making the animator the longest process in the pipeline to even worse. Like you're making their job longer and worse. Yes, Christian.
Well, also one thing that you maybe should mention is that you also been sculpting to make minifigs for tabletop.
Yeah, I do. I mentioned that.
But it's more just like that is also a way you could.
Yes. So if you want to sculpt, there's also a bunch of companies who are just doing miniatures for 3D printing.
By the way, I think I said that you can also do miniature sculpts if you do want to 3D print and then paint miniatures in case.
Yeah, you can. I do that. We have sculpts of mine in the cabinet out there.
Yeah. Oh wait, they're yours?
Yeah, the deer-headed things are mine.
Oh.
So yeah, you can also sculpt for miniatures design, like Warhammer, Dungeons and Dragons, and stuff like that.
And make your own statues, so you don't have to pay like 100 euros or something. Oh yeah, that one.
That was not mine.
That wasn't.
That was actually a previous attendee at Bootcamp who made this while I was sitting and teaching him how to use ZBrush Core Mini.
Very cool.
And he just printed that out.
But yes, if you don't want to pay like $100 or something for a statue of your favorite franchise, you can just make it and 3D print it, and then you just save all that money, which is very nice.
Yeah. I do feel like there's a little caveat that we need to warn people about there, legally speaking. You can't sell that.
Well, okay, so selling is a different thing, but if you want to keep it for yourself.
Yes, you can create it and make it for yourself. You can do whatever you want. If you start selling it, there's licenses getting involved, and that's just, oh my God, that's a headache and a half. IPs and stuff like that are difficult to work with. Oh, actually, I hate those. What about the feather parts of the owl? We will be getting to feather parts. Do not worry. I will be creating some feathers. I don't know how good they'll be, but we will be creating them. Boop. All right. So let us start defining things a little bit. So last tool we got introduced to was the slash brush. Its better looking brother next to it is the H polish. Now this, you have to be careful with your size, but this will flatten things out for you very, very nicely. This is also how, if you want a stylized look to your dragon, then you can flatten things out in planes. So you have like the plane of the jaw, the plane of the head, plane of different horns, and that will create a very nice, very quick stylization for you. You can also give us some nice, sharp ridges that we can then flatten out like this. And that looks more like the praying mantis I have up on my secondary screen. Oh, that is just lovely. Yeah. And then let's do the same thing to the other scales, because they now don't match up with this one. Look how clean and nice this is. So let's clean up the other ones as well. So just gonna flatten them out. Gonna H polish them, high polish. And do they, when sculpting for 3D, you keep in mind. So when sculpting for 3D printing, do you keep poly count in mind? Do I go as high poly as possible? So on and so forth. When I sculpt, I do not care. I go as high poly as my computer will take me. So that's a few tens of million polygons. I think my highest sculpt right now that is not in my graveyard is 125 million polygons. And that's on an old ass graphics card. But I do need to reduce it for the steps afterwards. So just like we're doing here with the reduction of poly count, where we don't actually lose any detail, I have more advanced versions of that inside full ZBrush. So I'll make an incredibly dense mesh, and then I will do what's called a decimation of it, and then I'm going to send that off to my technician. So, yeah. So yeah, a lot of what 3D is understanding what it is you're making things for. Are you making things for a game? Well, it's paramount that things are lower poly, they're less dense meshes and things like that, and they have a lot smoother forms, easier readable silhouettes. If you're working for movies, your only limitation is whatever hardware your animator is sitting on, because he's the person who needs to animate on it. And at that point, what will happen is you will create a bunch of systems that will make sure that the thing that gets rendered out and makes it into the movie are actually high poly models that can be as high poly as your sculpts are, but they can't be while they're being worked on by animators. If you're working for 3D print, it's less important because you're pretty much the beginning and the end of the process. The only other person who's going to touch things is your 3D print technician. If you don't have him or her or them, then it's just you, and that's a-okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you have nobody to blame but yourself when things go wrong. So I like this design. Let's flatten this out, get it unified across the mantis, the praying altus. There we go. There we go. There we go. And these are the technical things. Like if you feel the urge to go there, do, and things like that, do it. I think everybody does. I know animators have a tendency to like go wah, yeah, hua, when they animate if they're doing combat scenes.
Are you judging us?
No, not at all. I don't judge animators.
No.
So.
I mean, I haven't done that yet. I haven't done a lot of fighting scenes either, but.
So, Mess is asking if the 3D printing process is similar to sculpting models for games, as you create a high poly detailed mesh and then decimate it afterwards. The difference is you don't decimate a mesh for games, you retopologize it. For 3D printing, you can decimate as much as you want. For games, you need to do a manual retopology, because decimation mesh won't look correct inside a game. It will be weird, that your geometry is all over the place, and it'll just be, in general, very hard to work with. So, the decimation part is only for the 3D, or for the 3D printing things. In a lot of ways, 3D printing is the easiest thing to sculpt for, because it's just one step. Well, it's two steps, but it's just a different way of thinking. It's a different workflow to work towards. All right. Okay. So we need to start adding in some details, but let's say we have a deadline coming up in 2 hours and we don't have time to sculpt every little bit ourselves. This is also one of the places where we are going to go around the limitations of ZBrush Core Mini and get a fine result afterwards. The last 4 brushes in our tool palette are our chisel brushes. These are 2D images that can be projected onto our model, like so. This means these gives us the capability to create some high detailed details or parts of our model that we can then copy out as many times as we want. Normally we do this with the eyes because the eyes are a little bit weird to make inside ZBrush Core Mini. As you can see here, me placing these are getting a little bit, I'm getting a little bit frustrated, a little bit annoyed. And we have 3 of them. We have our Chisel 3D, which has some basic shapes, some noses, some mouths, some 3 eyes to start off with, even a bit of some ears if we want to work with that. We have our Chisel Creature, which has 17 things. And this is troll noses, elf ears, goblin ears, horns, teeth, scales. These scales are really, really nice. Just FYI, if you want to make scales on your dragon, like so. But once you start layering them, start from the bottom and go up, because layering them like this will give you a better result. Then if you go from the top, let me show you, go from the top and then go, oh no, underneath them. So those are very, very nice. There are also a few teeth, which I think we should have a look at, because maybe there's 1 or 2 of them we can use to give our dragon some nice teeth. Make sure you're not projecting it onto the bottom of things, because the size you project with is 360. It's not just on top of here, it's also below. So if I make this giant, you can see it's going below it. It's starting to pull things in here because the picture you project onto it is from everywhere. And it's just angled in the way you're pulling, but it will ruin a lot of your other geometry. So be careful, be gentle with it. I'm just gonna add a few teeth there, make it monstrous. I'm just adding my basic teeth in the start. And then I'm going to add variation in them later. But for our basic tooth setup, we can start with a symmetrical one, and then we'll add variation in later. Go with eye 2. Okay. Yeah. I just need to reduce my mesh. Yeah. Yeah, and these brushes will get you into a very, very dense mesh very quickly. So do be wary of that. Your brush size decides the density of it. You can see here, medium-sized brush, get an okay thing. Low-sized brush, get high definition here. If your teeth are turning out very pixelized, turn down your brush size. That will increase the amount of geometry that your brush will create for you. All right. Miguel wasn't completely wrong when he said eye 2. I don't hate it. I'm not in love with it. So let's go for a few more and check what we got. Because we still have chisel shape, which I tend not to use that much because it's just basic shapes. Like so. It would actually be good to like make eyes up here if we were doing that. So reducing. There we go. We're doing. Nope. I take that back. It's not good. So yeah, these are just basic shapes if you want to create cubes, if you want to create things like that on your mesh. Sure, it's fine, it's cool, it's good. Do you do you. But the last brush we have is the truly ginormous Chisel Organic. This one has 83 different projections that we can use to create our object. We also have things like anime eyes, if we want to make our character super cute. There you go. Just imagine him coming in the morning. Ugh. And we also have a few shapes if you want to go, like I know we said praying mantis, but if you wanted to go rhinoceros beetle, you could do that. Oh, that's not rhinoceros beetle. That's just horns. That's like there, rhinoceros beetle. If you wanted to do rhinoceros beetle, you could do that here. Don't hate that. So yeah, we have a bunch of things in here. We also have a bunch of eyes. We have like a stylized gecko eye. No, that's weird. We have a non-stylized frog eye. That's getting a little bit of difficulty with our eye cavity. So, what about if we do it multi-eyed? I got to get some of the praying mantis back in there. Not entirely, because like it's still multiple eyes, but praying mantises have compound eyes, so it means like their eyes are a few hundred eyes. And I forgot to turn on symmetry again. So let's just create a nice base for these eyes. Because that's sort of mixing the compound eye. I don't hate it. It's mixing the compound eye from the mantis, but at the same time we're also getting that small beady-eyed thing from the owl. Whoop. I think this is sort of right where I want to go for, but I just need to figure out where the placement is best for it, because that's sort of the interesting part here. And I am really just going back and forth here. I'm just putting down an eye, seeing if I like it, control setting it, because we have the opportunity. Like if this was traditional clay and you'd spent 20 minutes, an hour sculpting an eye, you don't have the option of just control setting it. You have to remove it, scrape it off, and then spend half an hour sculpting a new eye. That's going to take days to just try things out. You have to be a lot more clear. But because we're working digitally, we have a lot of freedom to just go back and forth in our process and try things out in an instance instead of in hours. And if you're coming from a traditional art background, I know there's a lot of people who have this preciousness about their art, that they like to, like, it has to be right. My brushstroke has to be the right brushstroke. My placement of this projection has to be the right placement the first time. It's like, no, you have the option of doing multiple goes, of trying multiple things, and allowing yourself to use that option is going to create more interesting creatures and sculpts, and it's going to make your life a lot easier if you get over the initial preciousness with your sculpts. So, so part of the bit of the destruction here, I think this is actually sort of where we want to go. I'm not too chuffed about this because I can always just, repair it later. So let's get a proper placement of this. Yeah, Now that's actually speaking to me a lot more because it gets that owl look if you look at it from the front. Even this still looks very avian. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with this, and then I'm just going to repair this by going back to my clay buildup brush, smoothing it, and then bringing back in my segmentation of the chitin. So, yeah, no, I actually really like that. There's a little bit of messiness in here, but we can just sculpt that back in, clear it up, maybe even add a little bit of extra wisdom wrinkles here, which is super weird because owls are really stupid. Like I'm not even it's not me being funny. They're really unintelligent birds. They have super senses and all this, and they look really human, so we like to think them as smart. But apparently they're just dumber than a bag of wet mice. So it's, yeah. Giving owls wisdom lines is not. You can hear it's not. It goes against my bias, but it's a good design. Owls are designed good. All right. As you can tell, this is a very fluid workflow. It's a very fluid process. It's very quick as well compared to a lot of other things, because the result we got today compared to the result we got last week, where we were traditionally modeling things, two vastly different ends, and it's just such a quick workflow, especially for organic things. But don't, like, if you're beginning, don't do inorganics in ZBrush. It's yeah, it's a thing, but don't. Creating this, just doing all these little bitty brush strokes, getting a little bit of that owl skin or bird skin features into it. If you want a bit of reference for it, I can pull back up my baby owls for you. Yeah, so these are the owls I'm looking at. So, and yeah, let's go in there. And let's create a little bit of detail. So somebody earlier was asking me if we could do some feathers. Now normally I would do feathers separately from the main body, but we don't have that option today. So instead, we are going to, let me just reduce. Bye. We are going to find a brush that will lay itself down as if it was feathers, and then we're going to use that to give us a base for our feathers. Boop, 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 boop. What about fungus? I don't hate that. It's not quite feathers, but I don't hate it. Actually, it looks pretty damn neat. Ooh, starting getting projections inside projections. That's never good. Do like that, like that. Yeah. So I'm going to use these to create like a downy ruffle effect on my neck. And I want to get it down here on my cheeks as well. I think there's a second fungus if you want some variation in this. There is. There's even a third one, so we can get a lot of variation in it. There we go. Here we go, here we go, here we go. All right. So, like I said, I'm going to use these as bases to create more feathers off of. And by that, I mean I want to add in that little, like the straight part of feathers. I want to add that in. So I'm either going to build it up with my clay build-up brush, being fairly small. I'm going to start building up these hard parts of feathers to give it a bit more definition. And of course we can use our move tool to also just change it up so it doesn't look copy pasted as much. Maybe even pointing it out. And then I'm just going to go back and forth sculpting my details, because now we're at the detailing level and it's all just about sitting and making sure that everything's somewhat cohesive. And while we don't need to do feathers, if we just hint at them, a lot of the time the human mind will start to fill in the blanks. But of course we can go in and just absolutely sculpt everything. Boop, 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 boop. Going down in topology level, because we gotta do that. All right. Ooh, yeah, we're good. All right. What is the time, Christian?
20 minutes till 7.
Oh dear, we're running out of time. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. All right. So before we go to Q&A section of today's class, I feel like there's a last few things we need to go over just so you know like how to get things out of ZBrush Core Mini. So first one is, out here we have a few different materials that will make your model look different, of course. You can also change the color of them if you want to. You can't paint, but you can do this. And there's this little button beneath it called occlusion. This will just make your shadows a little bit crisper and your highlights a little bit tighter. So it's just going to create a little bit more detail, a little bit more visual interest for you. Just looks nice. And then, after we have done that, we have 3 buttons at the top here. Now these are our options for getting things out of ZBrush Core Mini. The first one is exporting an image. I'll just take a JPEG, Photoshop file, PNG, your standard things. And praying Altis, I think you guys dubbed it. Praying Altis. And this is the picture we get out. See, this is a 3D picture. It's great. So there you go. I have that exported as a picture. Next to it, we have this little 3D printing box. I'll get back to this one. But we have a camera here that turns around, and this will just record a little video of a turntable of your model turning around. It's going to save it as a movie file. Let's put it on our desktop. ZBrush movie, oh, nothing. Here we can see it spinning around a bit. And whoop. There we go, desktop, ZBrush movie. I'm gonna play it. Here we go. You can see it. It does tend to capture your mouse cursor as well, so don't have that on screen while you do it. And the final one, why am I not allowed to shut down VLC? Oh, it's telling me there's an update on the other screen. The final one, the middle one, is export for 3D printing. This will allow us to take out an OBJ. An OBJ is a standard object file format that most 3D softwares can read. Most 3D printing slicers and software can also read them, and will be able to take it in and spit out a piece of geometry that you can actually just feed into a 3D printer and 3D print for yourself. So, yeah. And yeah, so last 15 minutes Q&A portion. Come to me with all your questions. I will do my best to answer them.
We also kind of want to do something fun that we thought about.
Oh dear.
That
I've not been told.
you want to join in here?
Hi. I'm the local dungeon master here at the school, and what I'm thinking, if it's possible, that send your stuff to our Discord channel at Bootcamp, and what I will do then is that I will randomly select one of the dragons and use it actually to be an enemy for some of the adventurers here as the students. So, and if it's possible, I will try and see if I can also 3D print your dragon, and then use it for our cool campaign here at the school. So, if people want to, and also we would love to see your awesome work in general, also in our Discord Bootcamp channel. Yeah. So send your stuff, and can't wait to kill some adventurers with your cool dragon. So
yeah. So do join the Discord. Save. You can save a picture and the 3D printing file. And
yeah,
then,
send the OBJ through the Discord. You can actually do that.
And then we will pick a winner at some point, and then we can 3D print it and maybe put it at our school or something somewhere.
We can 3D. We fixed the 3D printers. Now we can 3D print as many of them as we want.
So then we'll pick a winner and we will put it on display. On the school. I think that would be kind of fun.
It would be absolutely lovely.
Yeah, and then obviously send pictures. We can share it in Discord to show that it's on display for everyone at school. If you're interested.
So do join the Discord, and as well, if you want to do more 3D stuff with us, you can join up for the online course 3D Essentials. And yeah, any other questions? We're open to answering them now.
Also physically, if anyone has.
Yes.
Both online and physically. But yes, but please, if you do want to get the chance to have it 3D printed and then we display it, remember to send both a picture and the actual file. So everyone will get the chance to see what you've created, and so we can actually have the file and 3D print it, because, yeah, that'd be cool. That is horrifying.
What do you mean? It's a baby barn owl.
It's a barn owl. Are those the ones that are? Oh wait, no. All like small owls are really furry, like
fuzzy.
Yeah,
but they look like this when they're babies.
Is that just a baby owl in general?
Yeah.
They don't look like that when they become old, right?
Oh, they look pretty.
But that's not.
No, that's not a barn owl. That's a horn owl.
Yeah. Wait,
I think
the barn owl is the one from what's the game? Or in the Blind Forest, isn't it? If anyone has played that game, the big boss.
What's that one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
That's a barn owl.
It's so pretty, and really stupid too, right?
Most owls are.
Right.
And the slowest bird.
Is it slow?
Comparable to its size, it's the slowest bird.
Oh.
And in Harry Potter world, they decided to use the
slowest
bird
animal in Harry Potter.
as their male.
Yeah.
Male delirium.
Yeah, I think I said in Harry Potter, which is weird that they used owls to send mail and stuff when they
have instant teleportation.
Yeah, that as well,
and the Flu Network. Like they could just tell.
Yeah. So these are the types of discussions we get into at CADA. Is
Harry Potter talks.
Harry Potter talks. We do the same thing with Lord of the Rings. We'll do it with World of Warcraft. We'll do it with pretty much any IP you can think of. If somebody here likes it, we will have discussions about it.
Wait, all right. So we're having a thing here. There's not the option,
Here,
isn't there?
you click that one. Export for 3D printing.
Yeah, and then you should be able to save it somewhere as an OBJ.
Yeah. This one will save as OBJ and only as OBJ.
Yeah. I think, probably.
Nope, that's the only thing it can do.
Yes, that.
The CPR is just your ZBrush project. That's if you want to take it to a different location.
When is the deadline to upload the image in OBJ?
Actually, you guys started this. You guys.
You can do it throughout the week.
Hi again. Then I'm jumping into frame. So if you want to spend a little bit more time on your was it a praying
Altus?
Playing
Drago?
Drowl.
You can use a few more days, kind of just like finalizing. And if so, you can start by sending the screenshots. But if you then are luckily selected as the dragon who is gonna go against some of the adventurers at our Dungeons and Dragons, I can contact you as well and then ask if I can get the file.
But I would say like till at least next time, right? Like till
at least the next time.
till Thursday next time.
Till the next Thursday.
Yeah, so you guys have some time to also watch the VOD and stuff and do it again.
No, yeah. Sure. Hvad bare?
Har den meget det der sensitivity? Gør den selv det at regulere det?
Jeg har slået det fra.
Du slår fra?
Så jeg slukker simpelthen for tryksensitiviteten og sådan ting.
Men er det ikke det, der er det fede ved det? Eller hvad?
Du kan bare vente til det.
Okay.
Jeg bryder mig ikke om det på.
Nej, okay. Jeg tænkte bare, det er derfor, at det var smart at gøre.
Du bruger ikke touch. You are weird.
I turn off my touch sensitivity on my Wacom board because I feel like there's too much randomness with it.
Yeah, okay.
I use it.
So I just have constant pressure on everything, but it means I use a lot more my brush size for things. And I go over things a lot more.
Men har den ikke et eller andet?
Ja.
2.000 eller 4.000?
Den har 3.000 og et eller andet dpi.
Ja. Ja, okay.
Så det er helt fint, helt respektabelt. Alright. Should we end the stream or are we good?
Trying to turn on mic again.
Yeah. Sorry, we just had some questions because somebody asked about my tablet, and my dirty laundry came out to air that I don't have pressure sensitivity on my tablet.
Yeah, that's so weird. And if you are wondering where you should send it, there is in the Discord a channel called 3D Bootcamp. Other people have posted things there as well. Please do post. But no, wait, that sounds like I don't want to pressure you guys, but I really want to see what you've created because this is fun. ZBrush is fun to see the results.
Here's the thing about it. Like, our students are highly invested, not just in themselves, but they like everybody else who's creative. And seeing other people's work is like...
It's one of the best things, being able to walk around and see everyone else's work. Like, also a lot of the times you look at your own work too long, and then you get really tired of it, and it's like, oh, I don't want to look at this anymore. So you're just longing for other people to show off their work, so you can get motivated. Be like, oh, that's so sick. So yeah, I would love to see everyone's work. But the channel is called 3D Bootcamp. So
yeah,
yes, cool. Have fun. Enjoy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, normally with a lot of the other ones, it's when we play with the eyes. Projecting the eyes onto it, because I go through every single eye. Some of it's just nightmare fuel, like putting people eyes on these dragons. Oh my god, no.
I just saw the eyelash creature in the Discord. It's really good.
Oh my god.
Look at the eyelashes. We're looking
It's
at
a
another
cutie
screen so you
pie.
can't see it, but that's really good.
How dashing.
That's fun.
Lol.
Nice. Oh, that is awful. That right there. I'll stop. Alright, I'm out.
I love these projection brushes because half the time it's just absolute nightmare, and the other half of the time it's halfway usable. So, yeah, no, it's great fun, good fun. Anime mouse?
Oh my.
Oh no, it gets even worse if I do like that.
Oh my god. The last thing you want is to be eaten by that thing, and then you see that its throat closes up.
Oh god, no, thank you. All right, everybody online, I'm shutting you guys off, and I'm thanking you for today. Join us back next week when we will be touching upon traditional hand-painted texturing. There will be a post on the Instagram account that will let you vote on whether or not you're doing an axe or a sword, both of which I've made, and we will be texture painting those.